Fans of the Horus Heresy, thank you very much for joining me for a book review of the Horus Heresy Collected Visions, published by the Black Library in 2007. This is an interesting book that I've decided to do a review of as a bit of a precursor to a series of reviews that are to come on the main Forge World Horus Heresy rulebooks. So running from book 1 Betrayal through to book 6 Retribution. I've decided to look at this because this predated those books by a fair few years, and it really is an interesting bit of background artwork, and also there's a lot of written history in it as well, and there's a couple of short stories as well. And it's interesting to look at this and think of it as being the major work that came out of Games Workshop prior to the Forge World series, where the game was actually developed. And it is. I mean, if I were to describe this as a book, because it's not a rule book, so be very clear on that. This is not. This is not a book to buy if you want stats and rules and army lists and scenarios. It's not that at all. I'll probably best characterise it as being a Black Library coffee table book. It is a collection of artwork, and it is a collection of short pieces of fiction and a collection of history. So that is what it is. But as a visual collection, it's certainly very interesting, and it's a sort of book you can pick up and just open at a random page and quite easily read. So it's quite a easy pick up, put down book. But at at nearly 400 pages long, it is a very detailed book, and it does indeed chronicle the whole Horus Heresy, starting from the end of the Great Crusade all the way through to the Emperor's permanent internment on the Golden Throne. So this book, it was published in 2007. It's a collection of 4 previous books: the Visions of War, Visions of Darkness, Visions of Treachery, and Visions of Death. And they were all Black Library publications, with the primary author being Alan Merritt. This was republished in 2013 under the title of Visions of Heresy, which is still available now for £45. I picked this up at a gaming show a couple of weeks back, and I managed to get it. It's in mint condition, and I got it for the original retail price of £30. And I got this one because I really like the cover. It was sort of a black and silver depiction of Horus's Council of War aboard the Vengeful Spirit. It's available new with a more colourful cover should you be interested in it. Let me talk about the artwork before I'm going to dive in, and I'm going to leaf through, and we're going to have a look at some of the art within it. Before I do that, just a few observations on the sources of the artwork. They're pretty diverse. There's artwork that goes all the way back to the second of the original Realm of Chaos books, the Lost and the Damned, and I certainly recognise from that era, and some of it was also published in White Dwarf as well. Then there's a whole host of art from the Sabretooth Games 2002 onwards game, the Horus Heresy collectible card game, and then in addition to that, there's various other concept work from Games Workshop artists. In particular, there are numerous sketches, concept sketches and idea sketches by John Blanche in his own inimitable style, some of which were clear precursors for things that Forge World were to develop in their miniature range. So it's quite a collection. There's 2 stories. There's 2 stories in this by Graham McNeil. There is a very short story titled Prospero, dealing with the events around the tragedy of the Thousand Suns and the Space Wolves. And then there is a longer, more developed short story called the Caban Machine, and the Caban Machine is a really good story, and it's actually a precursor to the full novel Mechanicum, also by Graham McNeill. So if you have read Mechanicum, this is an interesting addition to that story. And if you haven't, this is certainly a story I would recommend. It's a good piece of science fiction in itself. So, yeah, I think that's enough preamble. Let's open this book up and have a look at some of the art. So behind the jacket, it actually has this flat black cover. So yeah, it's very noir. So let's have a. So at the start of each section, there's a timeline, which this is the same timeline again and again, and it talks about the different millennia and the ages of mankind's history. Then we have an introduction with the picture of the emperor from the duel between the emperor and Horus, and this is by Adrian Smith, and this is Adrian Smith did the original picture of the duel between the emperor and Horus, featured in The Lost and the Damned. We'll come back to that. But yeah, so lots of art. I mean, you know, there's lots of this art in the style of cards. So very varied art styles, which is nice. And here we have the first example of one of John Blancher's art pictures from the Horus Heresy. His Horus Heresy sketchbook, and this is a Space Marine Legion captain with this somewhat grimacing Baroque, perhaps, mask on his armour. And you'll find many well-known characters from the Horus Heresy, and both in terms of an artistic depiction, and also here we have Malcador the Sigillite, and also a descriptive history of the character as well. And, you know, a bit there about the origin of the Space Marine. The artwork of picture art of the Space Marine Legions. Throughout this book, there are some interesting inconsistencies with the, only very small, but there are a couple, and it's quite fun to spot them. But here we have this Imperial Fist, and the Imperial Fist is wearing what appears to be Mark 8 armour, which was not around until after the Heresy. So, yeah, points for you if you can spot any inconsistencies in the armour marks. But yeah, so all of the Marine Legions are depicted there. There's a large section of artwork which looks at around Istvan. We have artwork of the Primarchs, and there's Leman Russ, Magnus the Red, and Rogel Dawn. Sanguinius, Horus, Chaotic Horus, and a depiction of the Emperor. Constantine Valdor of the Adeptus Custodes. A whole variety of art around the Adeptus Custodes, and this is going to be interesting inspirational stuff as the miniature range starts to be released. And throughout this, there's a whole variety of war gear and equipment depicted from the ages. So you have infantry, you have naval vessels, quite a variety as well. Really quite a variety, and there's some nice little Easter eggs in there if you've known the game from early on, because there's some very old models depicted. That is a Blancher sketch of an astropath. It's interesting that, because this was the basis. I can tell this is the basis for the 2014 Forge World event model, but interestingly, that model was a navigator as opposed to an astropath. But that is clearly the sketch it was based on. Rogue Trader, original style Land Raider there with single las cannons. As well as the Marine Legions, the Mechanicum, the Sisters of Silence, and I've already touched on the Custodes, a feature in this book. And there's the famous, which one's that? Kelbor Howell, there we go, the Fabricator General of Mars, who was to play a big role in the Heresy. The Emperor himself. Horus Lupercal. Most of the different Space Marine legions are featured to differing degrees. Certain legions feature much more prominently than others. So depending on your legion, I mean, there's a lot of Sons of Horus, Emperor's Children, the original Traitor Legions, World Eaters. Less so, perhaps the Iron Hands, Salamanders. Fair bit of Blood Angels and Imperial Fists, but different amounts of art. So depending on if you've got a particular interest in Legion, this may be more or less useful. This is an interesting picture here of a Davonite Lodge Priest. Clearly, how on earth did they get involved with those guys in the first place? Yeah, just kind of there's more Tarian. A somewhat Cossack-looking Imperial Guardsman. Custodes Cataphracti Terminators looking badass, to coin a phrase. Some nice interesting pictures like this where these are some World Eater Scouts and depicted in quite a different way to normal 40k warriors. And that's one of the nice things about this book is a wide variety of artistic styles that are shown. Saul Tarvitz. So an early section on the early crusade, and then it moves to the Istvan campaign, and then the Battle of Istvan III with its dire consequences. And you will see pictures like this throughout the book where traitor legions are shown fighting each other because, of course, Istvan III was where their loyalists were purged and annihilated, although it did not go according to plan, as we see here with these Imperial Emperor's Children pillaging the Sons of Horus Rhino. Some stuff on the Sisters of Silence. There's lots of these Blanche concept artwork. Magnus are red, and Blanche has certainly turned him up to 10 in that picture. But yeah, so as you can see, it's a very large book and loads of arts, and then it's been kept in the original format. So here you've got the start of the second book, so Volume 2, The Visions of Darkness, and again you get the timeline, which is repeat, and then it proceeds on. And here we've got the other half of the Horus versus Emperor picture by Adrian Smith, shortly before their fateful duel. This is an interesting picture here. If you remember back to the very early days of White Dwarf, this was what's this called? I believe it was finally called the Jocasta Landspeeder, but this was made out of a deodorant bottle, a couple of plastic spoons, and this was a few weapons from some toys, what were they called there? Zoids. So yeah, quite funny to see that in there. Some guard, lots of guard. Gal Vorbak, looking fairly restrained there compared to the Forge World miniature comparisons. Various protectors from the Mechanicum. Some demons making an appearance. Possessed Marines. So clearly, it does move. It moves the story along. I like this page here where you wonder who the monsters are, with the depiction of the Space Wolves, but also some Space Wolves at the Wolfen, who are questionably human, and no surprise that they are kept hidden from general eyes. The Sisters of Silence, who we now have rules and models for. So I'll just flick forward. Oh, there you go. And it's not just all Space Marines. It's not just all the mortal. There are some depictions of demons as well, which is adds to the flavour. And here we have the Keeper of the Secrets as well, and some Demonettes of Slanesh. Who that one is there? And that looks like another. That's supposed to be a sanctioned psyker. That Malcador and the Emperor. Ooh, just go back one. That's the concept sketch of a Cataphractii pattern Terminator armour from John Blanche, and of course at the start of the Horus Heresy miniature range, that was to be released as its own, their own models, and now of course we have plastic versions of those, so they've clearly been a successful part of the product line. Emperor's Children, various degrees of debasery. So this, if you remember, I talked about the 2 short stories. This is a Caban project. This is a really good short story. An excellent piece of sci-fi horror. I would highly recommend reading that, and also the novel Mechanicum. And this is actually developed into a fairly decent length short story. And then it moves forward, and then we have the other short story here, The Battle of Prospero, again by Graham McNeil. And all the time the stories are interspersed with artwork. This is a good picture. This is the Sigil of Malcador. So here, I believe that is depicting Nathaniel Garrow receiving the mark of a Sigilite for when he started out on his lone mission, where he was to become known as the first knight errant. Occasional iron-handed appearance there. Right, oops, there you go. This is a really good picture. The Council of War. This is supposed to be Horus aboard the Vengeful Spirit, surrounded by traitor Primarchs, the Fabricator General of Mars, and possessees as well. So a real group of evil operatives there, if there ever was one. In amongst that, though, there you go. I just love this picture here of this World Eater Scout Marine with his wearing a respirator and with some targeting equipment, targeting goggles on. That's a great picture of that. There's lots of there's one of Ferrus Manus's bodyguard. So it's quite formidable. Oh, now there we have a funny little inconsistency in the armour mark department. So this guy's I don't know who he's supposed to be, but this guy's clearly wearing Mark 7 armour, so feels a little bit out of the timeline, which is quite funny, but doesn't really matter. It just adds to the character of the book. An excellent picture of some World Eater Berserkers there. Some Raven Guard. All sorts of weird and wonderful Mechanicum things as we move through this as well. There's lots of great pictures of Death Guard, Word Bearers, and Alpha Legion. I love this picture of the Alpha Legion Marine in this one as well. Oops, shot through a few pages there. The occasional picture of some Titans as well. Then the final volume here, which is Visions of Death. This moves into the latter stages of the Heresy. Very old bit of artwork there. I believe that was by Ian Miller, and that was from the original Rogue Trader book back in 1987. This is a pencil sketch by Adrian Smith here. That was from the Lost and the Damned. It's another old piece of artwork. It also featured in a White Dwarf. I can't remember what number it was, maybe about 127 or something. Well, we have the Caladius grav tank. We're just waiting for the hover rhino, the grav rhino now. More demons, so picture of Perturabo, Fulgrim as a demon prince. Ferrus Manus. Oh, there's another picture of our favourite knight errant, Nathaniel Garrow. Very old style rhino, well, Predator. That was a metal. That was a plastic and metal model on the original chassis. That was. So that's a real relic of the past. That one, and nice to see it being used in the artwork. The corruption of the Death Guard to Plague Marines in all their grisly gruesomeness. And then in this last section of the book, there is a extended period of story covering the Siege of Terror. Here's another pencil sketch by Adrian Smith from The Lost and the Damned. And there's his re-imaged artwork in its full glory there. Like the Imperial German style helmets, quite funny. And then it moves towards the end, the final battle, and the outcome of that. Angron as a demon Primarch, and then here we have an old John Blanche picture of the Eternity Gate as well, which sort of draws a close to the tale, and the story describes the interment of the Emperor onto the Golden Throne. The final section of the book is what's called the Saga of Horus Heresy, and this is basically just a list of all the cards from the collectible card game. So if you're a player of that, clearly of interest, and quite neat to have them all together there. And then the final sobering picture is yes, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Beneath a picture of the Emperor interred upon the Golden Throne. So yes, that's a book. It's a big book. As I say, it's a sort of thing that's nice to pick up and look at for a few ideas from time to time. It's got just so much stuff in it. There was one picture I didn't catch first. There we go. I just wanted to finish with this picture. So this is the original Adrian Smith depiction of the fight between the Emperor and Horus aboard the Vengeful Spirit at the height of the Siege of Terror. And this was a picture that was featured in The Lost and the Damned. And you can see how things have changed since then. We had these guys are clearly wearing Mark 7 armour. Sanguinius was depicted in quite a different way. He looks like he was wearing a robe as opposed to a heavy armour, as we become too accustomed in seeing him. But yes, so that goes all the way back to the Lost and the Damned, about 1990 or something. So there you have it. The Horus Heresy, Collected Visions. I hope you've enjoyed that overview of the book. Let me know what you think. Thank you very much for watching as always, and I'll speak to you next time. Goodbye.